prepare Ms. Gamboa for the presentation to be followed by our discussion. Okay. So tonight we only have one reporter, right? Ms. Gamboa only.
Yes, Doc.
Okay. So please.
I, good evening, everyone. Doc, should I proceed na po?
Yes, you can start. Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. So, my presentation and my report is about pre-analytical, analytical, and post-analytical variabilities in clinical chemistry laboratory. So, currently, the use of clinical laboratory tests is growing at a promising rate, and about 80% of the clinical decisions made are based on the laboratory test results. So therefore, it is a major task, especially as medical technologists, to uh, give them or to give our doctors accurate and precise results for them to give our patients better diagnosis and assessment. So tonight, I will show you how these variabilities affect our laboratory results, specifically in our clinical chemistry tests, and in what phase is the. I will also show you in what highest percentage of, or in what phase is the highest percentage of variability can occur. So I have found here a journal which has this title, Pre-Analytical, Analytical, and Post-Analytical Errors in Chemical Laboratory. So the objective of this study is to evaluate and analyze causes and prevention of pre-analytical, analytical, and post-analytical errors in a clinical chemistry laboratory. So what they did is they present the study, and they conducted this in a pronounced laboratory in India, and a retrospective analysis of the results obtained from the clinical laboratory for errors in the pre-analytical, analytical, and post-analytical phase has been carried out on patients from the inpatient department and the outpatient department. So this study was conducted 1 year round. So they started January 2014 to December 2014, and they asked the laboratory personnel to register all their rejections and the causes for rejection of the ward, as well as outpatient samples collected in the laboratory. So the results showed that out of 200,978 samples processed, the most common error seen in laboratories was pre-analytical, and they reported 305 cases. Then comes analytical, 5 cases, and under post-analytical, only 4 cases. And in their pre-analytical errors included, they recorded 156 cases of it is because of hemolysis, and that's 51.1%. And 130 cases, or 42.6%, is because of clotted blood. And the rest, 19 cases, were due to less quantity or wrong sampling. And in their analytical errors, they were mainly due to equipment malfunction, and in their post-analytical error were mainly due to typing mistakes. So, in summary, this is the result of their study. So, in pre-analytical errors that were observed in 305 sample, it is approximately 97% among all the errors. And in analytical errors, only 5 cases, and in post-analytical errors were 4. So, we also have one research study here which has this title, Total Clinical Chemistry Laboratory Errors and Evaluation of the Analytical Quality Control using Sigma Metric for Routine Clinical Chemistry Tests. So what they did is they had a cross-sectional study, and this was conducted at DESI Comprehensive Specialized Hospital Clinical Chemistry Laboratory in Northeast Ethiopia. And they did this study from February 10, 2020 to June 10, 2020. So all clinical chemistry laboratory test requests with their respective samples, all their external quality control, and all their daily internal quality control data during the study period were included in the study. And the data were collected using a prepared checklist and analyzed using SPSS version 21. So this SPSS version 21, guys, is a comprehensive system for analyzing data. And these SPSS statistics can take data from almost any type of file, and they use this file to generate tabulated reports already, such as charts, plots of distributions, trends, and they also make this SPSS can also make descriptive statistics and complex statistical analysis. So the result of their study, a total of 4,719 blood samples with their test requests were included in the study. And out of 145,383 quality indicators, an error rate of 22,301 or 15.3% was identified in the total testing process. And of the total errors, it is said and they find out that 76.3% were pre-analytical, 2.1% were analytical, and 21.6% were post-analytical errors. And of the total 14 analytes in the Sigma metric evaluation, except ALP, all routine clinical chemistry tests were below the standard. In multivariate logistic regression, the location of patients in the inpatient department was significantly associated with the specimen rejection. So they also have the conclusion, and the study found out that higher frequency of errors in the total testing process in the clinical chemistry laboratory, and almost all test parameters had an satisfactory sigma metric value. So as we have seen here in the two studies that I have presented, uh, it is in the pre-analytical phase that the higher percentage of errors occurred. So the first a study was conducted year 2014, and this second study was conducted year 2020. And also we have also a comparison by Stankovic in year 2008, which is uh, conducted a comparison of magnitude of pre-analytical errors in relation to total analytical errors, and this was published in Quality Improvement in the Pre-Analytical Phase, focused on urine specimen workflow. Um, he compared that 93% by 2014, the errors come from the pre-analytical phase, and 32 to 75% is from the analytical phase. Also, uh, a comparison study by J. Cream and the source of this diagram here is the evaluation of changing patterns in clinical laboratory errors. This was conducted in 2007. We have seen here that 80% of errors is from the pre-analytical. So the majority of these errors occurred in the labeling phase. So we also have this total analytical error distribution. This study was the comparison was made by Ross and Boone in 1991, and this is issued in published in um, ano to? Institute of Critical Issues in Health Lab Practices. So according to Ross and Boone, 46% error source is from pre-analytical, 7% is from analytical phase, and 47% post-analytical. So that's in 1991. And then another comparison study was made by Plebani et al. In year 1997. So according to him, error source pre-analytical 68%, analytical phase 13%, and post-analytical is 19%. So laboratory errors can occur at any stage of our pre-analytical phase to the post-analytical phase of our total testing process in our laboratory. So tonight we will be tackling about the pre-analytical errors that usually affect specifically our clinical chemistry tests and results. So first is our pre-analytical variability. So we have pre-analytical errors. So these errors are defined as errors which occur when non-analytical factors change the concentration of analytes. So the result do not reflect the real condition of the patient. So our pre-analytical variables have these two kind wherein they are the controllable variables and the uncontrollable variables. So we have the test and sample collection, our physiological, our diet, lifestyle, stimulants, drugs, herbal, and recreational substances. And in uncontrollable, we have our age, sex, race, environment, season, obesity, pregnancy, and stress and fever. So in controllable variables, um, variability may be introduced during our phlebotomy. So we have this test conducted, our patient identification, turnaround time, our laboratory logs, our transcription errors, patient preparation, specimen collection, separation, and aliquoting. So if we have errors done in these procedures here, we can have variabilities in the or errors in our test results. So this variability may be introduced, as I have said, during our phlebotomy. So for example, using the wrong specimen tube or using wrong type and concentration of our anticoagulants, and the effect of it is, or sometimes we have drawn blood from infusion site. So the failure to draw the sample into the proper tube can also interfere with the test results by subjecting the sample to improper coagulation. So it can lead to chemicals can be altered, and the chemicals can be altered by in their measurements or in their values. So also we have failure to draw samples in the proper order of tubes may contaminate samples. So these errors can make some of our values in our some of our analytes to be increased or decreased. So we have this diagram here showing change in percentage in serum concentration of various analytes after tourniquet application time of 6 minutes. So prolonged tourniquet application will cause hemoconcentration of non-filterable elements in our serum. So this is an error in our sample collection. So um, we have these analytes here that when we have applied our tourniquet for 6 minutes, there's this 10% increase in our alanine aminotransferase, in our creatinine kinase, in our bilirubin, lactate dehydrogenase, in our gamma glutamyl transferase, in our albumin, alkaline phosphatase, total protein, in our cholesterol, and our triglycerides. And also 5% change in our serum concentration, in our aspartate aminotransferase, calcium, erythrocytes, and 3% change in serum concentration of our hemoglobin, uric acid, and sodium. So we have also these analytes here when applied with tourniquet for after 6 minutes of tourniquet. We have we can have decrease in potassium, chloride, creatinine, urea, inorganic phosphate, and leukocytes and glucose. So adequate patient preparation, specimen collection, and specimen handling are essential prerequisites for our accurate test results. So the accuracy of our test result is dependent on the integrity of our specimens. So we have this sample collection wherein the timing of the collection is very important for some of our analytes, and therapeutic drug monitoring. We have peak and throw collection times. We also have basal state collections wherein there are some analytes that have fasting requirements, no food or liquid except water for 10 to 12 hours. And we have 2-hour postprandial from the start of food. We also have specimens affected by time of day, for example, our cortisol, our iron, and our TSH. So, a number of analytes have been shown to have predictable changes in their concentration during a 24-hour period in response to a wide range of factors, including light and dark, our meals, sleep, our posture, our stress. So, any changes that human can undergo during a typical day. So we have this um, table here, which are the common analytes exhibiting diurnal variation. So we have acid phosphatase, adrenocorticotropin, aldosterone, our bilirubin, our blood urea nitrogen, our catecholamines, cortisol, our FSH, our growth hormone, iron, our luteinizing hormone, progesterone, prolactin, testosterone, thyroid stimulating hormone, and triglycerides, and our uric acid. So these analytes that have been reported here exhibit diurnal variation. So for some of these analytes, some laboratories may provide different time-related normal ranges. For example, some analytes have morning and evening cortisol levels. Some analytes here, they are very significant differences observed in the evening than in the morning. And for some analytes, they need serial collections at similar times of the day, so that the differences between the concentration will be minimized owing nga that is diurnal variations. Also, in the variables of sample collection, we have common typical errors in our, for example, incorrect tube, in our incorrect order of tubes. So because of this, we can have consequences like we cannot analyze our samples, or there's contaminations and there are false results. Uh, Next is hemolysis. This is a very common error, and hemolysis affects analytes that are present at higher concentrations in erythrocytes than in plasma, such as our potassium, our lactase dehydrogenase, our AST, our magnesium, our phosphorus, and our acid phosphatase. So, hemolysis may also affect unblank analytical methods. And also in typical errors in our we encounter, no, that can give common interferences in our laboratory results. We have in vitro hemolysis, which can give us high potassium, LDH, and hemoglobin. Interference with many analytical and may give interference with many analytical procedures. So we also have this hyperlipidemia. So we also have hyperbilirubinemia and drugs. So it can give us interferences to our testing. So I also have this diagram here wherein this shows the changes in various analytes with increasing hemolysis. So we can see here that in increased hemolysis, we can also notice increase in our lactate dehydrogenase, in our aspartate aminotransferase, in our HDL, in our alanine aminotransferase, in our potassium creatinine kinase, in our triglycerides, cholesterol, in our urea, fluoride, magnesium, and sodium. Also in our, there's this decreasing naman in their relative concentration, our alpha glutamyl transferase, and our alkaline phosphatase and amylase. So these are the analytes affected by increased hemolysis. So our next uh, cause of variability is our physiological state, and this is under controllable, and that is our posture. So our posture can affect the concentration of some of our analytes as a consequence of our normal physiologic mechanism responsible for maintaining our blood pressure. So as the body changes from lying position to standing position, our blood pressure sensitive hormones increase in concentration to rise our blood pressure to maintain the adequate perfusion of our brain. So here, uh, we can have changes in our blood volume, our heart rate and blood pressure, in our GFR, and our orthostatic proteinuria. So we have this diagram here showing increased percentage of plasma concentration of various analytes when changing from supine to an upright position. So we can see here our hemoglobin also increases by 4%. Our leukocytes, our hematocrit, and erythrocytes. Here we can see an increase in plasma concentration in our total calcium, aspartate aminotransferase, in our alkaline phosphatase, in our immunoglobulin M, in our thyroxine, in our immunoglobulin G, in our IgA, in our albumin, total protein, apoprotein B, cholesterol, in our LDL, triglycerides, HDL, and our apoprotein A1. So also there is an more than 20% increase to 50% or more than 50% increase in their plasma concentration because of our position in and our posture. We have the analytes aldosterone, our epinephrine, our renin, and norepinephrine. We also have this variable prolonged bed rest. So in prolonged bed rest, it can also affect our fluid retention, our creatinine kinase, and potassium levels. So we have exercise. So exercise can result in transient or long-term changes in some of our analytes. So some of the more commonly described analytes affected by exercise are listed here. Our bilirubin, our creatinine kinase, our HDL, our cholesterol, hormones, lactate dehydrogenase, and neutrophils, and our uric acid. So the degree of change depends on a number of factors, including the person's fitness, the amount of our muscle mass, and the duration and intensity of the exercise we have. Also, the amount of time that has elapsed between the time we had our exercise and the collection of our blood specimen. So physical training. So in physical training, these analytes can be affected. Our serum enzymes of muscular origin, our NPN, our T4, and our lipid. So we also have circadian variation. So our physical, our mental, and behavioral changes, or so our biological activity or function can also affect some of the analytes in our body. So we have our cortisol, our renin and aldosterone, our TSH, and growth hormone. And during our travel, so we have glucose and triglycerides here that it can be affected during our travel. So also our diet. So the results is very complex, and it relates not simply to distinction between fasting and non-fasting status, but also to a number of other factors, including the type of diet we have. So while many dietary issues are outside the control of of our laboratory and must be controlled by the persons caring for the patient or the patient itself, the laboratory is responsible for providing appropriate information about the dietary requirements for each test offered. So in our diet, our protein, our fat, and our sucrose carbohydrate can be affected. So food ingestion. In food ingestion, it can cause substantial changes in some of our blood levels of some analytes. So in addition to the known effects of food ingestion, another reason for collecting most specimens in the fasting rate is um, usually we have our chemistry tests being test when we have our fasting, and postprandial, and because the reason for that is um, the study conducted for that specimens or for that analytes to be tested are traditionally been performed to fasting patients already. So accordingly, the established normal ranges are typically fasting normal ranges. So for some analytes, the normal range would be somewhat different if non-fasting patients were studied. So in food ingestion, it we have fasting and postprandial, alkaline tide after meal, and our GTT. We also have specific food that can affect some of the analytes in our body, such as caffeine. So we have this diagram here. Um, Change in percentage of serum concentration of different analytes after a standard meal. So we can see here our triglycerides increase 50%, no? If after a standard meal. We have 20% increase in our aspartate aminotransferase, in our bilirubin, in our inorganic phosphate, and our glucose. We have changes in our allotransferase and potassium levels by 10% increase in our serum concentration. We have this is 3% change in our uric acid and our protein, albumin, calcium, urea, sodium, and our cholesterol. And after a standard 700 calories meal, our lactate dehydrogenase decreases. So we also have this uh, malnutrition that can um, affect our protein levels, our lipid, our T4 and TSH levels. We also have prolonged fasting and starvation. So, prolonged fasting and starvation increases our amino acids, our bilirubin, our fatty acids, our glucagon, growth hormone, ketones, and and our triglycerides. And it decreases our glucose, our HDL, our cholesterol, our insulin, our lactate dehydrogenase, and our T3. So the next variable is our lifestyle. So the first is smoking. So usually if a person has been asked to fast before a blood test, they should also avoid smoking because an increase this can make increase in some levels of certain substances in our body for like our the nicotine, our plasma epinephrine, our glucose and insulin, our lactate, our lipids, cortisol, our carboxyhemoglobin, our gastric juice, our immunoglobulins, and vitamin B12. Also, alcohol. So, alcohol can affect our glucose levels, our inhibition of gluconeogenesis, our lactate and urate, triglycerides and HDL, cortisol, and GGT. Next are drugs. So, um, our medications also cause a wide range of effects no, on our laboratory tests. This includes side effects. So, side effects and the drugs that have that are thiazides can cause hyperglycemia. Uh, in phenytoin, we have bilirubin. It can affect bilirubin conjugating enzymes. Recreational substances. In amphetamines, it can affect the levels of our free fatty acids. Morphine can affect our amylase and lipase, and heroin can affect our cholesterol and thyroxine. So next are those I have mentioned are controllable variables. Next are the non-controllable variables. So first are the biological influences. So we have this better agreement between serum concentration or activities of constituents in monozygotic than in dizygotic twins. So we have many research studies about and comparison about the concentration of these analytes, of these hormones between monozygotic and dizygotic twins. And we have also in women and blood group O, it is said that hemoglobin concentration are lesser than other blood group. We also have this non-controllable variable, our age. So in newborns, uh, they are They have changes related to infants' adaptation to independent existence. So usually their RBC count and hemoglobin concentration are higher, and they have still have hemoglobin F. They have physiological jaundice, blood glucose, and plasma amino acid concentration are different, no, from other age group. So we also have childhood to puberty, wherein uh, we have it affects our plasma protein, and in elderly, uh, their creatinine clearance, T3 and insulin have different values already. The next variable is our sex. So both sex and gender and their interactions can influence molecular and cellular processes and clinical characteristics, as well as their health and disease outcomes. So in our results, normally there is normal reference range for females and normal reference range for males. Uh, Usually, changes after puberty affects the values of our enzymes, our lipid, and our NPN. Also in our race, clinical laboratories often set their own reference intervals to accommodate variation in local population and instrumentation. For some tests, they have reference intervals change as a function of sex, of age, and self-identified race. So race is included in our non-controllable variables. So uh, we may have different total protein, albumin, glucose tolerance, and hemoglobin. Environmental. So this the following list may contribute to environmental variables such as the altitude, the ambient temperature, residence, and seasonal. So I have here a journal which has this title, Sources of Variation of Commonly Measured Serum Analytes in 6 Asian Cities and Consideration of Common Reference Intervals. So uh, what they did is the background of this study is to determine the feasibility of common reference intervals in Asia. So they have found significant differences among populations from 6 cities in this study, and they attempted to define the sources of the differences on that 6 Asian cities. So what they did is they have enrolled 580 healthy volunteers, 279 are men, 301 are women, and 20 to 62 years old. So after a selection process that was based on the Clinical and Laboratory Standard Institute guidelines and used a lifestyle questionnaire, all zero were obtained at a basal state and frozen at 80 degrees, negative 80 degrees Celsius until the collective assay was done, and they measured 21 basic chemical analytes and 10 serum proteins. So in the results, they also included the variation in the body mass index of the individuals, also their alcohol consumption, the cigarette smoking, although it is said that these contributions were generally smaller than those for sex, region, or age. So, in conclusion of this study, they observed that there is an acceptably large regional difference in measured values of some analytes, even after adjustment for age, sex, and lifestyle variables. So genetic and environmental factors really may account for the residual differences. So next are medical conditions. So obesity, pregnancy, stress, and fever can contribute to uh, and affect our some of our analytes in our body. Next is the analytical errors. So we have these analytical errors. Test system are not calibrated. Results reported when control results are out of range. Improper measurements of specimens or reagents. Reagents prepared incorrectly. Reagents stored inappropriately or used after expiration date. Instrument maintenance not done, and dilution and pipetting errors. So these errors here may lead to inaccuracy, imprecision errors, insensitivity, and linearity issues. So in accuracy, this invalidates reference ranges and cutoff points and may lead to inappropriate therapy or failure to treat, may lead to misdiagnosis, and may lead to failure to diagnose. So in imprecision issues, this may give poor reproducibility, invalidates patient monitoring using laboratory results. And in sensitivity, there is a change in assay sensitivity leads to issue of detection and affects robustness of results near the detection limit. In linearity issues, a clear understanding of linearity of a method is essential to ensure that grossly inaccurate results are not reported where there are high concentrations or activities of analytes. So, the analytical variables occur during actual testing of the specimen. So, the performance of tests in the laboratory is rigorously controlled. So, uh, that's why we have quality control procedures in place that markedly reduce errors in the analytic phase of testing. So, differences in the methods for also the differences in the methods for performing the test may of the different laboratories may yield slight differences in reported results or normal ranges. So we should also check reference ranges given for the tests. Next are the post-analytical errors. We have transcription errors in reporting, report sent to the wrong location, report eligible, and report not sent. So these post-analytical variables occur after a test result is generated. So in general, such post-analytical errors that are listed here, such as reporting of test data, uh, errors occur in the entry, in the manipulation, and reporting of test data. If results are written by hand or entered via keyboard, then an entry error may occur. So errors in data transmission include the list here. It also may include hearing or verbal information incorrectly. And reporting problems include exceeding the turnaround time for reporting or not notifying the appropriate healthcare provider. So in summary, um, pre-analytical errors occur 46 to 68.2%, and it is because of insufficient sample, sample condition, sample handling, incorrect identification, and incorrect sample. In analytical error, we have 7 to 13.3%, and this is due to equipment malfunction, sample mix-up, and interference. Where in post-analytical, we have 18.5% to 47%, and due to reporting and interpreting and improper data entry. So, pre-analytic variables can really affect test results, leading to misinterpretation and inappropriate patient care. So we should have a substantial portion of laboratory errors are the result of problems that arise in the pre-analytic phase, and that's 46 to 68.2%. Since monitoring efforts probably can detect only a fraction of total errors that occur, prevention is the key to reducing pre-analytic errors. And prevention of pre-analytic errors requires knowledge of our many pre-analytic variables. So knowing these variables can adversely uh, knowing that these variables can adversely affect our laboratory results. So ideally, the system should include checks and controls to minimize pre-analytic errors. And also, phlebotomy, uh, the phlebotomy staff is the key to they are a key component of the control process. So the phlebotomists must understand that the rationale behind collection and processing requirement and must adhere to the requirements for all specimens collected. So prevention also requires education and cooperation among physicians, nurses, ward clerks, phlebotomists, and laboratory professionals to assure that the right specimen is drawn under the right set of circumstances. So impact of errors. So we can have inadequate or improper patient care, inconvenience to the patient, and this is serious misdiagnosis and harm to patient and even death. So what should we do? We should develop systematic workflow, identify critical processes, continuous monitoring, predict accidental events so preparation may be ahead, and strengthen defenses and decrease vulnerability. So this is my references of my report tonight, and thank you for listening.
Okay, thank you very much, Ms. Gamboa. Now, I just have one question with you. No? Based on the presented, the report for tonight is complete with regard to the content and examples and applications. So everything is already in the report. So if you listen carefully, you can really know the importance of discussing these vulnerable variabilities no, in the laboratory. Now, Ms. Gamboa, based on your experience, since you're practicing medical technologies, no? By the way, do you have a paper or study there in a local setting or written or done in here in the Philippines? Among your example studies, do you have there?
Actually, Doc, I have not encountered studies locally here in the Philippines. So
Okay.
I have read journals from other countries.
Okay, so the papers presented are international publication or not international studies, no? Well, this is some of the challenges or really, actually it's a reality that we are really missing some of basic studies, if I may say, no, because these are routinely happening in our during our practice. Meaning, you don't need to exert much effort, for example, in performing a research on inventing or developing something, but this already what's really just you need to document what is happening in your workplace. So with that, since these are all international or settings, no, wherein they are equally having the same result, wherein the pre-analytical is the most common cause of these variabilities, no. Now, Ms. Gumbawa, based on your experience, what is it also? Do you think it's also the same scenario or same condition with our setup here or setting in the Philippines, wherein it's still we can consider that the pre-analytical will be the if we will do some research, no? Do you think it will be the same scenario based on your experience in the lab?
Yes, Doc. I really think so, Doc. Actually, after this report, as I am doing this report, Doc, I really parang I can relate, no, with the errors that I have read, no, on the different journals. This is really happening also here in the Philippines, and uh, even in our own laboratories po.
Okay. So, well, actually, the next question is about how can we prevent this. But since you already presented it after the last slide, no, you also give us the solution, no? So some of the solutions that we can do in order to not to really eradicate 100% because that's impossible, no? But definitely with these recommendations, suggestions that you got, it will really help, no, to lessen, no, the cases of these errors, which is also being stated by our presenter tonight that what are the consequences of having erroneous errors in the lab. Even the simple, like for example, the post-analytical nowadays, we are resolving this already. No, what do you think is the changes now that we're doing in order to resolve these cases of the post-analytical, Miss Gamboa? Do you have an
Um,
idea
in
how
our laboratory, doc, we really impose the releasing logbook
okay?
and the proper identification of the patient who are getting the results.
Mhm. How about the
And
cases with, for example, instead of eight, you write six. So how can we resolve this?
yes, doc. We had this protocol that uh, uh, parang there's two ano po, yung sa sign. So the medtech and there's someone who will verify. So it is not only me who checked the result. There's also another medtech who verified it and double checked that the results and the data, the details are all correct. But sometimes there's still error, but yun ba, it minimizes naman that there's there's someone who will verify, no, all the results before it will be released po.
Yes, actually, it is now really a practice. No, one time I went to a private hospital, tertiary hospital here in Manila, and I saw that there's already three signatories, no, before the result will be released. For example, the staff on duty, and then the supervisor, and finally the chief medical technologist will also countersign the result. So in this one way of lessening the errors in the transmission of the result. No, sometimes because of, and also one of the best remedy for this is the computerization. Now, computerization meaning that once the result is already done, the machine itself has an attached computer to transmit the result and print it automatically. So we lessen the old method wherein we need to check the machine, then you write the result in the logbook and you type it manually in a result form. So before, that's the practice, no? Not so long ago, I even experienced that, no? Using an old typewriter and then type the results, no, before for the final result is typewritten. So now that's the move now in whole to lessen these errors in the post analytical by using computerization. So computerization is one way, to lessen it in the post analytical. So but definitely, as we discussed last time, no, we cannot assure really a 100% accurate and precise result at the end if you started already with the wrong mislabeled specimen, misidentified patient. And of course, even though you have the best machine in that laboratory, if you have these errors in the pre-analytical, you get the blood from a different patient. So whatsoever testing that you will do, definitely you will have a wrong result because that specimen doesn't belong to that person you need to test. No? So those are the connections. No, actually, this is a very interesting topic in clinical chemistry. No, wherein um, well, our presenter experienced now because the topic was given to her. So she saw that, oh, there's a lot of publications. Actually, marami yan. We have a lot, no? So there's why I know because again, uh, my last research is about the vein finder development, and I started with since vein finder is part of the pre-analytical procedure or using blood specimen collection by this instrument, no. So I started reviewing how many or how many percent of the error is really coming from the pre-analytical phase. So also my concern there is this technology of using light instead of the tourniquet will really help and resolve some problems in the blood collection procedure. So also in the presentation by Ms. Gamboa, we saw that the prolonged use of tourniquet will really affect our results. So that is part of the specimen collection. So the specimen collection itself, there's a lot of things that you can actually get some idea, information from that procedure. Okay. So definitely, I don't know why is it the presented report stated that 6 minutes. Am I right, Gamboa? 6 minutes yun, no? 6 minutes use of tourniquet.
Opo. Prolonged.
Yeah, prolonged. So 6 minutes because the only allowed minutes is one less than 1 minute.
Opo.
So the actual practice now is that once you saw the vein or located the position, then you can actually remove the tourniquet once you hit the vein by the needle. So it takes a very short time. No? It will not even take 30 seconds if you are really doing it properly. Okay, so definitely the use of tourniquet not only can be a carrier of infection but also can affect the result of the lab. Okay, so thank you very much, Ms. Gambawa. Now, uh, can we have two representatives, one from local and from the international students, to share some of one of the common cases that you are encountering in your practice that leads to errors in the result? And then also give us what will be the best remedy in order to prevent that kind of condition. Okay, let's start with the local one before we go to the international students for the discussion of this topic. Anybody from the local students who can share, aside from those that we already discussed, no? Can you share something that you encounter in the laboratory or in your practice that can be considered in what? First, identify what phase is it, pre, during, or post-analytical, and then what is the best resolution for that? Anyone? I guess this topic is very common. Everyone here is, we are all maybe 100% practitioners, or even you experience during your training or your internship that you cannot forget. Wherein this case became a very serious one, and then how did you or the laboratory resolve the concern? Wala. Yes, Mr. Oscar, go ahead.
Hello, sir. Good evening po.
Yes, go ahead.
So, my experience that I will be sharing was was from post-analytical errors po.
Okay.
So, this thing happened with the releasing of the result.
Mm-hmm.
So, it was like um, the result. So, this happened in our section. So, it's molecular lab, sir. So, it's a
Mm-hmm.
molecular testing. So, what happened was we had this worksheet when you are running PCR po kasi. So it's batch running.
Okay.
So you had this worksheet that will sorry for a moment. You have this worksheet that would um that would
indicate the placing of the samples inside the machine.
Mm.
So after running, the results will be written on the worksheet. So the you should observe the proper positioning of the um, results from the shown results in the computer, and then you will transfer it to the uh, worksheet as handwritten. Oh, so you'll
How
write
do
it.
you, sorry, how do you label that set testing versus on the worksheet? I mean, is it, for example, the worksheet, is it full name or just numbers?
Just numbers, sir.
So number in the worksheet and number to that specimen to run.
Yes, sir. So
Okay.
we use codes or barcodes for us um to identify the patients, because if we were gonna be typing the whole name of the patient, it would take some time because we
Okay.
are processing more than 1,000 samples per day. So we lessen it by using codes. However, during the past, since there were mistakes due to that, so what happened was, what was barcoded to the computer or was inputted to the computer was different from the worksheet.
Mm-hmm.
So the the sample was actually for repeat testing. So it's something like that because it has reached a certain threshold that would need to be repeated. So the worksheet that was
Hello. Maybe our question, Mr. Oscar, will be like this: how did you discover that there is a mismatch between your labeling for the specimen and the worksheet? Diba? Maybe some of here in your in our class also wondering how did you discover that there's a mismatch? Since you're working in a molecular lab, I guess this is for COVID testing, right? Nawala siya, so medyo naputol siguro. But I guess this is a very serious condition or case, no? It's very hard to, for example, if you will release a result of false positive from a person, and especially if you are, if I may say, for example, no, I remember last year ba yun? I went back from Taiwan and I need to have this COVID testing. And then I stayed for 5 days in the hotel for the quarantine. And then imagine mo, no, if you will have this false positive result, you will be detained again or it will be extended or maybe they will bring you to another isolation area because of a false positive result. So I guess that is a very serious condition. Yes, go ahead, Oscar. So my question earlier is before you left, no, is that how did you discover that there is a mismatch between your specimen and your record?
okay. So what happens, sir, is the patient actually asks for him for his city value.
Mm-hmm.
So upon discovery, so you need to look at the worksheets that was sent to the data releasing team, something like that.
Mm-hmm.
So when the worksheet was looked up, and then it will be also compared to the what is the graph
Mm-hmm.
in the computer. So when it was compared, so it has the same value. However, it does not contain the same CVD number, or the what they call this, the same barcode or designation number for the patient. So
Mm.
so that was the time that it was discovered. So it was then investigated by the admin. So how did that happen or something like that? So what happened actually was um, it was the laboratory technician that prepared the worksheet that had inputted the wrong accession number in the worksheet, but the medical technologists had processed the right sample. So it was just a matter of two digits that was um, mismatch. So, but it really showed a big impact with the result because it was a different person. So what happened now is since we have discovered these errors that are frequently, not frequently, but that are really happening. Some are still, we call the term na parang nahahabol pa, but some errors were not actually being saved, something like that. So what our management did is we don't use the handwritten worksheets anymore. So they have acquired information system whereas you would input the actual value on the computer itself already. So um, there won't be any more inconsistency with the accession number from the computer to the written worksheet. So everything will be in the computer po.
Okay. So I guess this is a very serious case now, no? And I heard one time, no, during the height of the pandemic, there is an institute that is known to perform this molecular testing for COVID, which has this kind of reports that there are some cases of wrong results. I don't know if you know that, but there's a news about that, no? That they're questioning the number of results from that laboratory because of the detected errors or false positive results. No, anyway, it can be the same. No, even if you gave a negative result to a person who is really positive, and from a person is which is negative, you gave a positive result. So it will both give a very big impact. No? So, but definitely not, especially during the when the pandemic is starting, wherein if somebody got positive result, it's like they are being isolated or being call this. No, it's very hard for a person to accept. No, it's like that is the end. No, but actually, as we said, that this kind of virus, well, it could cause death, but that death of a patient, it also varies, and it depends on the situation, the status of the patient or the person, no? And your well-being is also being challenged here. But if you will really check and study what kind of virus is this one, well, it gives the same scenario like having a common flu. But as I've said, it depends on the response of our body, how to respond to this, and because of there are some cases that is we have different like a mild, asymptomatic, and the severe cases. No? So thank you, Mr. Garcia, for that. Anyone would like to share also from the local before we go to the international students? I guess one more because we have a lot of students here. Yes, guys, I can what do you call this? I can see that during the discussions now, the same people and same person who are actively participating. So again, this is part of your performance. So before I go to Mr. Samonte, let's hear from Miss Grace.
Hi po, Doc. Good evening po.
Yes, go ahead.
I would like to share about uh, an error we had. It
Mhm.
was, I think it was last year, about a patient, an expired ER patient. Lately, Doc, we have a protocol when an expired patient is for morgue, we will have a swab first before releasing the body.
Uh, by the way, are we talking about cases connected to COVID?
Yes, doc. Yes
Okay,
po.
so it's a dead patient,
Yes po.
and
The
then all
the
are
ER.
sorry,
Ay, sorry. Yes po, doc.
all patients in the hospital who will dead patients will be automatically checked for COVID, presence of COVID, right?
Yes, doc.
Okay.
Also before releasing the body po. Especially the morgues, ay the funerary po, doc. They
Okay.
are requiring the expired patient to have a swab result, a COVID swab result. So yun po. Our medtech is about to end her shift,
Mm-hmm.
and then since it was an ER case, the
Okay.
relative is on a rush because
Mhm.
they wanted to release the body immediately.
Okay.
Unfortunately, the expired patient was accompanied by yaya, by her yaya po. So the
Mhm.
yaya was,
Nani. Yes.
yes po, sorry, her nanny.
It's okay. Okay.
Her nanny, uh,
Oh, so the patient is still young.
yes po do.
Okay. So, but I guess that during that time, no, did they get the body? Because I guess the protocol then is every death from this during the pandemic will be automatically, ang tawag dito?
Cremated po do.
Cremated, right?
Opo. But ano po doc, when you have a negative swab po, they are considering it po to have a normal funeral po.
Okay.
So the nanny po doc, she was not sure about the details of her alaga po. Alaga.
Mm-hmm.
For example, the expired patient was has a name po of Maria Melania Arroyo
Talagang
Garcia.
pinangalanan mo pa.
For example lang po doc. So ano po, her nanny gave the medtech a name po of Mel Garcia lang po.
Mm-hmm.
Ano po, tas po kasi nung dumating po sa ER yung swab, sorry doc, it was, we have a requirement po na every swab should have a CI form. CI form, that's the ano po, case investigation po. So, di ba po, ayaw po. Tapos po, we were having a confusion because the CI form is not kataling po to the the swab's details po. Because the swab's name is having a nickname lang po. So it's ano
Okay.
po, a pre-analytical error no.
Yes. Not properly labeled and then
Yes po.
mislabeled and misnamed patient, right?
Yes po. So we confirmed the ER nurse po for the full name of the patient. So fortunately po, they confirmed the full name po of the patient po. And the relative, the nanny said that she did not know the full name of her ano po, alaga. Yun lang po.
Mhm. Okay, so I guess there's a lot of concerns to be considered there. First is performing a swab test without the proper name of the patient is a questionable procedure that being done, right?
Yes po.
So I guess I cannot imagine a medical technologist put some nickname or something in an official result. No? So it should be questioned. So I guess this case is still the pre-analytical stage wherein the proper protocol must be considered. No, even though it's emergency, even though it's stat, still, no, you need to properly identify the patient. Okay, so I guess 1 minute. Give me 1 minute. But when I'm back, I would like to hear some sharing from our international student. Okay, for a while, guys. 1 minute. Okay, so let's hear it. Anyone from our international student to share about any case or any experience about the concern about variability in any stage, post, pre, or during analytical stage. Anyone? This is already our fourth meeting. Miss Wang, I guess you were not around last week, right? Because it was said that you attended the seminar or conference last week, last Friday. Anything you would like to share, Miss Wang, Ning Wang, about the topic that we're discussing right now? Mr. Chan, can the international student can hear me while I'm having or talking here during the class? Hmm? Okay, so anyone would like to share something about the topic that we're discussing? Again, this is a course or a program wherein everyone is expected, you know, to participate. Um, for example, if they have no first-hand experience, but definitely every medical technologist during your undergraduate studies or during your training, your practices, everybody will definitely experience some cases of this variability in the lab. Okay. So unless you enrolled here in the MSMT, Master of Science in Medical Technology, and you are from other program, but I guess I check every paper or your application that all that accepted students here are all with background about medical technology. Okay, so Mr. Chan, I'm sure that all the international students here are with background, no, about medical technology practice, even though not in work experience, but also during their training or in their undergrad. Okay, so I just like to make myself clear about the requirements in this program. Okay, none, nothing. Okay, so if none, well, I already gave a lot of time for that. So, well, announcement before we leave this platform for tonight. Next Friday, we will have the reporting of Mr. Guido, right? And Miss Wang. Okay? So, this is the first reporter from our international students. So, I'm expecting that Miss Wang will present her presentation and her report, the topic. And our topic for the next week will be about, for a while, I will just check my record about the topic to be presented next week. Okay, so the topic to be presented next week is about quality control. Okay, so there are two kinds of quality control that we are applying in the laboratory. So it's universal. No? This is a universal procedure wherein all clinical laboratories, specifically we're talking about clinical chemistry laboratory, there is always quality control. No? Definitely, there's no laboratory without quality at all, no? Because we are handling lives of the patients here, and the accuracy and precision of the results is very important. Now with this topic for next week, that will be on March 18, okay, March 18. The topic will be quality control internal and external. So please, for the two presenters, Mr. Dr. Guido and Ms. Wang. Mr. Guido will present the internal quality control, and then Ms. Wang will present the external quality control. So there are two types of quality control that you are applying in the laboratory. No? So definitely these are two types of quality control that will maintain or to make sure that we are releasing an accurate and precise result from clinical chemistry lab. Okay, so please take note that we are expecting in the presentation, it will be first you introduce the two types of quality control, the internal and external, and then followed by the procedures and processes on how to apply internal and external quality control. And then you can also mention, okay, these two reporters can also mention what is the major differences between the internal and external. And you can also conclude after your presentation, what do you think is the most probably for you, based on your analysis, based on your opinion, what is the most important type of control? Is it the internal quality control or the external quality control? And also, again, please take note that, what is the advantages of having these two types of quality control in the lab? So, although it's given, but again, we need to be we need to state, no, why do we need these quality control procedures, especially in the clinical chemistry lab? Okay, any question from the reporter next meeting? I hope I gave some already some points, no, what to include in your report. Any question? Mr. Guido and Ms. Wang about your presentation next meeting? Kenneth, any question?
None po, Doc.
Are you in the laboratory right now?
Yes, Doc.
Okay, so I guess you're on duty. So again, now, okay, so those are the things that you need to discuss on March 18. No? So definitely, there's a lot of things to be presented here in these two types of quality control that we're applying. No? Even you can also include some of the mathematical equations or mathematical application of mathematics and analysis and statistics, no, in quality control. So definitely in this quality control we are using numerical values to describe and to present the values, no. So andyan na yung we all experience this, computing the standard deviation, making some graph. So you don't need to discuss it in detail, no? Well, like for example, you will present us how to compute it, but it's more on just make this as part of your presentation, like the graph. What are the different types of graph that we are using in quality internal or external quality control? Okay, so I guess that's it for March 18. So we have two reporters on March 18 about this quality control. Okay, so again, just a reminder, the March 25, we are asynchronous in March 25. So meaning we don't need to meet on March 25. That will be our midterm examination. So be sure that you will upload your midterm take-home exam. No, that's actually journal reading about cases in phlebotomy. So I already posted the guidelines on how to make this report, and then maximum of 2 pages is enough. Okay, as long as, again, please attach the original paper that you use for the presentation. Okay, so wait lang, parang I forgot to write, no? I will check again the guidelines. No? Wait lang. So I guess I forgot to write that you need. Okay, so again, note, no. Okay, so note. Okay, well, sorry, I forgot, but I need to write it now so you will be guided. So note is submit you need to submit first the actual paper, okay, so the paper, and then your 2 pages maximum, 2 pages report. Okay, so ayan. I already completed the guidelines for our submission. Okay, so check your TLC later on. No, you will see no what is the guideline for the midterm exam. Okay, so that's it. Thank you very much again, Ms. Gamboa, for your presentation. And then to the participation of some of your classmates. Okay, so let's call it a night. Today is Friday again. Enjoy your Friday night, guys. Good evening to all, and good night. And see you on next Friday for another 2 reportings. Thank you, guys. Have a nice night. Bye bye.
Thank you, Doc. Bye-bye.
Thank you, Doc.